everyone, back to today's second video. We're going to have a look at the GFS Ensembles. Today's second video, running through each ensemble member, see what they're showing for the second half of January. We've already done JMA Friday, which you can find here on the homepage. Just scroll down a little bit so the link ads. So essentially for the coming month with the JMA and CFS V2, is indicating a bit of a colder snap around the middle part of the month, and then probably getting milder again in the second half. But if you want to know more about that, check out the video if you would like to do that. I say this is going to be having a look at GFS Ensembles for the next couple of weeks. So particularly focusing on the extended part of the ensemble members, which is going in the second half of January. I'll go over that in a second. Going on with that, just about the ads. So it's link articles, I've already mentioned them. Have a browse through widgets and click through links if there's any articles that you're interested in, how we used to pay website. And thanks very much for doing that. We're going to start off with the operational run of the GFS. So this is the highest resolution member, if you like, of all of the GFS ensemble members. This is the one that we use for the videos. So I'm going to start off on Tuesday when we're in a southwester, or I should say a westerly, northwesterly flow, although the areas originate from the southwest a little bit, so it's relatively mild at that point. We bring some colder air into Scotland on Wednesday, and then on Thursday and into Friday, you get this trough pushing through, turning winds into the north. It does get cold in the second half next week. That could bring snow showers in towards Scotland. However, it doesn't last very long. Remember, GFS is rolling this next area of low pressure through on Saturday next week, so very quickly cutting off that northerly flow. And then we're going back into a westerly, southwesterly there by day 10, which is Monday, 16th of January. So it looks fairly mild, actually. Other than that little cold snap around the 13th, 14th, looks a fairly mild run tonight from the operational GFS. Let's have a look at the ensemble members. Now we'll start off with the control GFS, which is a slightly lower resolution than the operational run, but it's a higher resolution than all the other members of the GFS ensembles, if you like. So this is how we're looking on the 14th of January, when we're bringing in quite a cold area of low pressure, bit of cold air mass. That could be bringing some wintry showers in towards the north. Winds go back to the north there on the 15th, so quite cold then. However, very quickly, we're running the next area of low pressure in, and this one does look changeable as we're going into the second half of January. It looks unsettled until eventually, right at the very end, we get a bit of a build of pressure in some colder air. But that's an Atlantic-driven one. Starts off with the GFS control, and there is some coldish weather in there, but it isn't especially cold. Ensemble member number 1 then shows low pressure moving in across the country through the middle part of January. This is the 14th into the 15th and the 16th. That one looks unsettled as well. Then we get a bit of a build of pressure to the south, but more low pressures running in to the north. This one looks Atlantic driven and quite mild with ensemble member number 1 through the middle and second half of the month. Ensemble member number 2 has us in a northerly wind on the 14th. That looks cold, and low pressure has a go at coming in, but that is stalling a bit as it's trying to come in there. That could be producing some snow on the 16th and 17th. Eventually the Atlantic does break through here into the second half of the month. This runs up to the 22nd when we're back into a westerly flow. That's a little bit colder around the middle part of January, albeit is going back into the Atlantic. Ensemble member number 3 has, we start off on the 14th in a little bit of a colder air mass, but as we run through this area of low pressure, pushes in, and then that dies southwards and turns the winds into the east-northeast. So that brings much colder air in from the east with ensemble member number 3. That could bring snow showers in across England and Wales. Then the high pressure topples over country, producing a spell of frost and fog before it eventually gives way and more low pressure starts to come in, bringing wet and windy weather back, let's say from around the 20th of January onwards. Number 4 shows low pressure clearing out to the east of us here on the 15th into the 16th. Deep storm system bringing gale force northerly winds. That could bring some wintry weather, especially into the north. But however, we are going back into the west again. These look Atlantic driven tonight, these ensembles, I have to say. Only up to 4, but already you can see a trend which is for Atlantic driven weather and potentially quite stormy weather into the second half of January. Ensemble member number 5, looking like this. So we go into the middle part of January. This is 16th into the 17th of January, and it's all very, very Atlantic driven. High pressure to the south, low pressure to the north. That's quite a mild one, and at times wet and windy as well. Ensemble member number 6 has cold weather just briefly around the 13th, 14th. I think we only get a cold snap around the 13th and the 14th, but it doesn't look like it's going to last. It looks like the Atlantic very quickly is sweeping through here on most of these ensemble members, and again we finish up the idea of high pressure to the south, low pressure to the north on the 22nd of January, another very Atlantic driven one. So member number 7 has us in a bit of a northerly there as we go through the 14th, 15th into the 16th. That could bring some wintry showers into the north. And then high pressure builds in. So that's a drier one, and it is quite frosty and fairly cold weather. So that's a little bit different compared to what we've had so far. No Atlantic onslaught coming in with that one. It starts off quite cold and then turns dry and frosty. Ensemble member number 8 has low pressure diving southwards around the 15th. That could bring some sleet or snow and colder conditions. And then low pressure trying to break through from the Atlantic. It is struggling a little bit, but eventually it is breaking it through into the second half of the month. However, high pressure is having to go at building over Scandinavia. So that's a drier, colder one as well, albeit not really cold, but it is drier and colder with ensemble member number 8. Number 9 has a deep area of low pressure sweeping down across the country from the 15th into the 16th. Then high pressure is building to the north, so you are very close to some really cold weather there. And actually, around the 15th, 16th, it does look very cold. There could be wintry conditions coming in with that. And this area of low pressure moving northwards will be bringing some sleet or snow with it. However, we eventually go back into Atlantic type weather. Albeit again not notably mild, but it would be milder there into the second half of January with some rain at times as well. Number 10, we're halfway through, shows low pressure again coming across the country on a little bit of a southerly track, so that could bring some wintry conditions to the northern part of the country. However, it all looks very Atlantic driven again on ensemble member number 10. Nothing really notably cold, although pressure does rise to the north and west at the end, turning the wind more definitively into the north and the east. Number 11 brings low pressure in across the country on a little bit of a southerly track, so wintry conditions possible on the northern edge. However, again, it does look quite Atlantic driven till late on. This low pressure dives southwards and allows pressure to build to the north. We finish up in a colder easterly flow there on number 11. Number 12 looking like this. Low pressure running through the country around the 14th, 15th, 16th. That looks quite cold and stormy. And then we get a build of pressure to the south and the west, which eventually takes over and starts to dominate, bringing the winds round more towards the east with ensemble member number 12 at the very end of the run. Number 13, we start off in a northerly on the 14th of January, but we go into west-southwesterly. Looks quite mild there, and pretty wet as well in the west. It looks like we're going into a more unsettled spell through this middle part of January. Starts cold around the 13th, 14th, then probably turns milder into the second half of the month, and potentially quite stormy. Number 14 looks stormy on the 14th of January with a wind in from the north. That's a strong wind and a cold wind as well. And then the winds go into the southwest again here as we're running through towards the second half of the month. We end up on the 22nd of January with a lot of high pressure dominating, and the winds trying to get round into the east as well. Number 15 has stormy conditions through the middle part of January, and the basic idea really with this one is high pressure to be to the south and low pressure to the north. It does eventually finish up going a bit colder, but again that is very Atlantic driven with ensemble member number 15. Number 16 has again we have cold weather to start off with on the 14th. And then we find high pressure dominating. And this one is anticyclonic and dry. Really, that high pressure trying to ridge out towards the northwest eventually. So starting to try and turn the winds into the north and get a little bit colder. But that's mostly dry and settled and frosty with number 16. A little bit different to what we've had so far. Number 17 looking like this. So again, we find that we get this northerly wind coming down across the country around the 15th, 16th. and then high pressure builds in. That goes to Scandinavia and turns the winds into the east. That brings some very cold air in from the east into the second half of the month. That's probably our most wintry one that we've had so far on Ensemble member number 17. Number 18 has a northerly wind to start off with on the 14th. Then we go quite stormy around the 16th into the 17th. That low pressure clears through, and then we have high pressure to south, low pressure to north, and the winds are in from the northwest, so it's cool but not overly cold. Number 19 penultimately has quite cold weather there for a couple of days. 14th, 15th, winds are in to the north, and then low pressure breaking through off the Atlantic into the second half of the month. That one looks quite wet, stormy, and fairly mild as well for the second half of January. And then finally, Ensemble member number 19, we start off quite cold on the number 20, I should say. Ensemble member number 20, we start off quite cold on the 14th of January, bring this low pressure through to the north and west, so the winds are in from the northwest. It's not overly mild, but it's very Atlantic driven there into the second half of January. So I think we've got a clear trend with these ensemble members tonight, which is have this cold snap around the 13th, 14th. It may extend to the 15th and 16th, but it looks like it's only going to be a couple of days, and then we're breaking the Atlantic back through again. It doesn't look very mild with this Atlantic weather into the second half of January, but it does look unsettled, so I think we'll get some bouts of rain coming through, and temperatures could be on the cool side at times. In fact, in the north they could be on the cold side, but it's Atlantic driven, so it's never going to be desperately cold. There are a few options still there to get the winds into the east, but they're really in the minimum, and I think the basic idea is a cold snap around the middle part of the month, and then maybe a little bit of an Atlantic onslaught actually after that. Right, don't forget to check out GMA Friday if you'd like to do that, and tomorrow we've got weekend broadcast and CanSip Saturday, so come back for all of those updates tomorrow. That's all for now, thanks for watching.